Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and welcome to my show, High Road to Humanity. In every episode, I tell you powerful true stories filled with great wisdom that you can use in your own life as you strive for a higher road to travel. My featured guests will have their own unique stories to tell that enlighten your mind and your soul. So kick back, relax, and learn the secret to success when you take the high road.
First touch, strong connection, it lays deep in your soul.
Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and welcome to High Road to Humanity. And I have a lovely lady here today. Nadia Davis is with me, and welcome, Nadia, to High Road to Humanity.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the work you do.
Oh, thank you. She's written this really cool book, Home is Within You, and isn't that the truth?
Yes.
Gosh, Nadia, let me just give you guys a little bit of information about this lady. She is a mom. She is an attorney. She's a victims' rights advocate. She's a Kundalini Yoga instructor. She's an author of Home is Within You. It's a memoir of recovery and redemption, and that's what we're going to talk about today. She is a survivor of trauma and abuse and a near-fatal car accident, which we're going to ask her about. She's had addiction issues, public shaming. She's had a lifetime record, though, of passionate work and dedication to improving the lives of others. She is most well known as the attorney who fought tirelessly to free Arthur Carmona, is that right? An innocent victim wrongly accused and jailed for a crime he didn't commit. So she's really an advocate for people who are just not seeking justice. And I'm really glad she's here. She has a bachelor's degree from UCLA. She has a GD from Loyola Law School, and you can find her at Nadia, it's davis.com. And, Nadia, I know it took a lot for you to write this.
Mm-hmm.
Why'd you decide to write this? Tell us your story. You grew up the youngest of 7 children. You're a survivor of childhood trauma. Talk about this.
Yes, thank you for having me. I began writing my father's story and then Arthur's story, and it came down to their truth, to feeling that their full story needed to be told, and by telling their story, I was able to connect with mine.
Okay.
And the book is called Home is Within You because that is the one thing that I wish that I had known when I was younger.
Yeah.
And every chapter begins with Dear Son, because it's the one thing that I hope to teach my children. And what I mean by that is a space where we can feel calm in our bodies and in our minds,
Yeah.
with ourselves, within ourselves, so that we can feel calm and safe in the world. And isn't that what we all want?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, and it's so true. I have to stop you for a second because it's true. If I would have known when I was a little girl that
Right.
home was within me, but then, you wouldn't be the person you are today, Nadia.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, and we don't learn these things when we're young.
Right.
We don't learn how our mind works, and to put all these concepts that are in the book into a child's voice and vocabulary is my life, living the work every day for myself and the little girl within me, as well as for my kids. And so,
Yeah.
as a preface, I want to say I'm no guru. I live the work. In the book, I refer to 12-step recovery. I refer to trauma work, a ton of different readings, A Course in Miracles.
I know, you're like the third person. I just want you to know something. So I've had the last 3 shows that I've recorded have all been people who have been inspired by A Course in Miracles. So last week I ordered it and I received it. And it's interesting. I've done a lot of the work that's in there that I didn't know that was in there, but I'm reading it and it's really in depth. But I want to say that everyone should read it because it's really enlightening.
It is. And actually, my trauma therapist is the one that connected me to it.
Really?
And yes, and so the reference of attack thoughts that I will refer to here comes from that.
Okay.
And so um I encourage people to read the book because what I believe it provides is a roadmap into like where to begin.
Mhm.
There's so much material out there and there's so many people struggling that oftentimes we don't know where to start in our healing or in our enlightenment or to just get up and continue on in the day. And, I can't put a bow on the story, but
Mm.
I do know this, that I grew up with a lot of mental intrigues. And I call them that because it was an understanding that I'm just a body and my thoughts from some childhood trauma. I was the youngest of seven, and I
Mhm.
experienced some sexual trauma and then some racial bullying, and it just framed life as it's me
Right.
versus the world, and I live in a box. And it really wasn't until 10 years ago that I began to realize that I am not a body. I was offended when I first heard that, and that I am not my thoughts. And so the more and more that I became aware that that our minds are survivalist in nature, I started realizing like, wow, all these ways that I've survived, all these thoughts that torture me sometimes,
Mhm.
they're and that create shame, that they're survival skills,
Right.
and they attack me from the truth of what we all are, which is infinite beings, whole, divine, complete. And so as I wake up in the day, I always tell myself it's like I have a choice in every moment of every day between
Yeah.
love and fear or judgment.
Mhm.
And so I choose love today, which means self compassion and then compassion for others. When I am in fear and judgment, I'm in this survival mode.
Right. Good
So,
job. Good job. It's too bad you had to go through everything, but you learned so much. And you have 3 young boys, Diego, Harrison, and Elijah. How old are they? Can I ask?
yes. So Diego is 19 and
Oh,
he
wow.
is studying astrophysics.
Oh my
He's
gosh.
studying the it that I refer to in the book, the beginning of it all. And he was 12 when I, at the age of 44, had twin boys. And so they are now 7.
Oh, wow. That's a lot too. And you've been through a lot. You were married to a public figure. Um, do you want to talk about that a little bit and how that changed you?
Yeah, let me talk about how I was living and who I was when
Sure,
I
go
met
ahead.
him.
Go ahead.
When I met him.
Go ahead.
So the little brown girl in me, I found worth by dedicating myself to saving the world when I was like very, very young. My father is an orphan field worker who overcame a ton of challenges and became one of the first Spanish speaking attorneys in the state.
I know, I saw
He
that. That was so amazing. Let's talk about him a little bit. I mean, Wally Davis. He was orphaned
Yes.
at the age of 9. He also founded the Orange County Hispanic Bar Association, and I've spent a lot of time in Orange County. I was really,
Really?
yeah, I was really amazed by your dad. Talk a little bit about him. I mean, he was orphaned. What happened? Do you mind telling a little bit of his story and how he
Oh,
became,
I would love to.
because he inspired you.
He and his spirit are truly, truly what taught me at the darkest of times. Like, this is not who you are.
Well, let's talk about him.
Connect
Tell me.
with your truth.
Yeah.
Yes. So he grew up in Santa Ana, and his mother died of tuberculosis when he was
Okay.
9. He
Okay.
was temporarily put in foster care, and then he was raised by his grandmother, who was Native American, and her partner, long-term partner at the time, who was Mexican, Papa Leandro. So it's Mama Candy and Papa Leandro.
Okay.
And he worked in the fields with my great grandfather at the time, and he just had this belief early on that he wanted to help other people and that he was going to go to college, um, be the first, and he worked tirelessly. He was a janitor, a jazz musician. He was a stellar student. His last name was Davis, so which is where the Ahashamem Southern California native comes in the early 1800s.
Okay.
And so people would look at him. He only spoke Spanish for the beginning decade for his the first decade of his life.
Right.
And um that was his core language. He was learning English eventually.
Mm-hmm.
And people would look at him and say, well, what are you? Eres mexicano, porque se
Yeah.
Davis, and he had this thing like I am who I am.
Right.
And so when he began school, the children and as well as all the public places were segregated. He
Oh,
pushed himself through high school, went to the local city college and then the Cal State University, and then became the first Spanish speaking attorney graduating from UCLA Law School.
I
And
love
when
it.
he started practicing law, he noticed that there was a similar discrimination going on in a more modern form. And
Right.
it was where students were being tested in English only for aptitude.
Oh, wow. And they
And
didn't
so,
understand English. Okay.
right, so they were being misdiagnosed as being mentally retarded. And so it was a modern form of discrimination called discriminatory ability grouping.
Wow.
And so parents were bringing this to his attention, and he used Brown versus Board and this local Mendez case, sued the district, and it ended up changing the law in the entire state that children need to be tested for aptitude in their primary tongue. And so I watched him, and he was also,
Amazing. Amazing, let me say. That's just
yes,
wonderful. I mean, what work he's done, and that was in California. Yes.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yes.
Um, Now the household, I'm the youngest of seven in a 9-year span, and my mom is an immigrant from Germany. She's
Okay.
still a German citizen. She's a resident here, and um, they did the best that they could, and
Yeah.
there was not a lot of eye to eye contact, a lot of little, if any, just sitting down and saying what's going on. A lot of how how it's kind of still is, as long as there's a roof over their heads and food on the table, we're doing a good job. And so, being the youngest, there was always a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
And when things started to happen with a molestation in a doctor's office, and then
Okay.
kids at school saying, wash your face. I have a birthmark, forgetting to wear my brownie uniform. Well, you're already a brownie. You don't need it. I managed by hiding in the closet, and we don't understand these things when we're young.
You didn't say anything to anybody. You were too afraid.
Well, you don't understand what's happening. I knew I had like disgust from the doctor in me. And my mom did see my face after a
You went.
handful of times, and we never went back, but there was no discussion of what happened. And then at school, the I'm going to show them. I'm going to get all the brownie badges. I'm going,
Yeah. We're gonna
have them
prove
meet on the
yourself. Right.
right.
Mm-hmm.
That came up on the outside, but in the home, I mean, I escaped in the world in my head with projects, or when fearful, just in this closet where I would cry. And that mode continued throughout grade school. I set off to save the world. I was in student government. I did canned food drives all kinds of Amnesty International petitions. What kid in the middle of Orange County
Yeah. I love it.
is doing this stuff? Some things were happening with my friends and eating disorders. There was religious uh, contentiousness at home between some of the older siblings and the younger ones. And so some of them left. And I did some controlled eating for a period there. That's also part of the story.
Mhm.
And just was wanting to scream, what is going on?
Well,
But
yeah.
instead, yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, I wanted to say you eventually you go to college.
Yes, so I did go to UCLA.
Yeah, and then you had a horrible thing happen at UCLA. I couldn't believe this. And I don't want to bring up every terrible thing that's happened to you because we've all had terrible things happen in our lives. But you went through so much even when you're 18 years old. Here you are, your first year in college, and you write you were violently raped at
Yes.
college. I'm just
And
like, seriously.
so in this fighting mode,
Yeah,
getting the stuff in the past and managing,
yeah,
everything's going well. And it was a brutal reminder and physical violation that was a stamp. You are a body. And I retreated into my body and an isolation, and it was further chiseled. It
yeah.
is me against the world.
Mhm.
And it marked my living skills significantly for several years.
I bet. Did they catch him? Did they get the guy?
I I believe that a friend whose confidentiality that I will keep sacred here,
Yeah.
um, yes, found this person and held them accountable.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
So,
You've been through so much, but you kept going. You remind me of myself a lot because and all of us, I mean, we all go through so much. But then, I look at you today and I see such a well-rounded, balanced woman who found herself on the inside, which is what we're all looking to do, is to, find that love, that
mhm.
spark that comes from the inside. I mean, you went through so much stuff, but you're still an advocate. Let's continue on. After college, you go to law school. What do you do? Tell the audience about what happened. I don't want to tell your whole book,
Yeah,
but
no. I almost missed the deadline for law school. I was involved in a lot of student activities to protect women's studies and minority studies at UCLA, and
nice.
the rape, not having addressed it. I was in an abusive relationship, struggling to get out. And I literally called my dad the day before and told him that I was accepted to Loyola Law School. And he said, "Get that in," and that's where I went. And
Good.
my first year was full of all of this is behind me. I see right in front of me how the law can actually like change things for real.
Right.
I study abroad, human rights and international law the summer before my second year.
Awesome.
And I'm feeling closer and closer to my father and seeing the layout of the land for the future. And I got a call, and my father was gone just like that. He died of a heart attack playing basketball. And so again, I didn't understand
Mhm.
at that time that there was this infinite soul I could still connect to. It was just nothing. Nothing made sense in the world.
Right.
He symbolized hope, light, goodness, and a really intense survival mode was instilled.
Mhm.
So I moved home to help my mom. I commuted every day to law
Oh, wow.
school, and that became a blessing, um, as well as, again, it chiseled in this survival mode. Like I'm going to feel closer to my dad. I'm going to follow in his footsteps. And I know I keep saying save the world, but that really is how I found my worth. And
Mhm.
so I graduated and I began representing a wrongfully convicted youth, and was elected to the local school board and was living in the city where he grew up and on the school board of
Aw,
for the district that he had sued. So if that's not progress, I don't know what is.
that's wonderful. Oh, he was probably just looking down going, "God bless," you know? Can you imagine?
Yeah, and there
Can you
were
imagine?
scholarships,
Oh,
and a school named in his honor, and I was feeling closer and closer to the future again and this purpose. Vast community of friends, and just at the height of my career, and just really feeling like I was flowing within,
right,
not addressed any of the prior trauma, mind you. So again, in the survival mode. And again, bam, I was hit by a big rig on the way home from work and died temporarily. I had 22 broken bones, a punctured lung, my brain bled, and I was not breathing when they found me. And the experience of that is described more in the book, but
right,
the experience of that is really the message of the book, is how we can indeed, through meditation and through our breath, reach a pretty close state to what our true selves are, that I experienced and was in the middle of.
right.
And
So was that the
I can
point where
expand on that more, yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say, do you remember? Did you leave your body? Or is it just, um, you finally decided, "Okay, this is it. I'm gonna go within." I mean, what was it? Did you
No, there was no thought.
none of it? Okay,
It just is. And initially, I can't explain kind of a sense where innumerable spirits, past, present, futures merge. Everything makes sense. No fear, no judgment. And after that is inexplicable.
okay. So
Um,
that's what changed you, the ac
Absolutely.
the accident. Once you came out of it, you were a different person.
Yes. However, in a body, um, on life support, which I don't remember
Right.
yet after a month, um, of being in the hospital and then waking up in a rehabilitation hospital where I had to learn to walk again and everything.
Wow.
Although I left in a wheelchair, I didn't learn to walk there. Um,
You said, "I'm out of here."
the but the natural course of recovery, physical recovery for anybody, so many people have gone through things, is, you know, um, the message in the brain and the button in my hand to morphine is body, body, your body, your body. And so the stark difference in the experience with this infinite whole truth and then being in a body is black and white. But
Mm,
I went straight back into, I have to get up. I've got to try and move. First, it just was my feet, barely. Um, and then it was all the messages in my hospital room from the community in the middle of this Arthur Carmona Fight for Freedom case. The Nadia Davis, we need you, get better, and barely, barely waking up with consciousness, seeing this beanie baby from Arthur from jail. Again, that little just fighting instinct, the little brown girl was like, go save the world. they're going to forget you, actually, is what entered my head, and fight for your roles and your identity. And that's literally what I did. I wasn't standing yet. And, the pain was just inexcruciable. Once I went home, no meds. And we don't understand how, also with physical pain,
Mhm.
how medication, when it's given to you, how that has a physical allergy effect, let alone the memory issues, the processing issues, none of that. None of the childhood, young adult, physical pain, mental processing, none of that was addressed. And so what did I do? We put our suit on, we
And you
put our
went,
clothes on.
oh my
I have
gosh.
an energy drink, and I go and I'm trying to inspire people to stand up for this innocent kid and rights. And I start drinking to manage the pain. I'm super high functioning, and it was in the
Mhm.
height of that where I met my ex-husband. Um, and here I am, really, really struggling. My closest friends knew when I was in pain, or when, that they knew, but they really didn't have all the details. It was, let's just get this done right now. And again, the survival mode.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I met my ex-husband and made a plea to him for the brown kids in Santa Ana. We had a school bond and were landlocked, and there was a piece of legislation prioritizing education over commercial use. I was president of the school board at the time, and I made a plea to him at a local function, and he ended up tracking me down at the law office I was working for. He was standing attorney general at the time, and everyone looked around and was like, why is the attorney general calling Nadia Davis? And asked me to dinner. It went straight over my head. Gave me a rose at the end because we were only talking policy. That's how we connected, is
Mm.
super
Business. Yeah.
intelligent.
Mhm.
Not business even, it was issues.
Mhm.
That's really, you know, what I adored about him, and the only real connection. The age difference, I knew it was big, but I had no idea it was as big as it is. Um, and that was that. And then a second date, a substance was presented, and having had a couple of drinks, um, not realizing that this could potentially put me in an unhealthy situation, is the word I will use. I, for the first time, tried a substance, and I ended up getting pregnant. And that was the segue into a public announcement of a marriage that I likely would not be in had I not made that choice.
I see.
And yeah, and so he, with his own fears that I now understand today,
Yeah.
um, managed what could have been a pretty ugly, painful public scandal. It's all in the book, so I say it all here.
People can read it. Yes, that's true.
Yeah,
That's
and
true.
I, again, I embraced what I saw was the good in this man, who really never had kind of a home family life, and truly embraced me and the son that was in me at the time. And um, he had told me that he loved me the first time that we were together, which was when I got pregnant. And yeah, I mean, as a segue, he initially was not embracing of the idea, and I very, very, very independently made a decision. I'm going to raise this child on my own, and was not responding to his calls. And then kind
Mm,
of in an unhealthy way went to this place of what is best for all of us, and entered the marriage kind of with that in my head,
mhm.
is I'm not chosen. This is a way to help this man publicly, and a lot of sense of unworthiness within me. And I managed with all of that in the first years of the marriage by trying to ensure that the home was calm, and as he hoped it to be. And I traveled with our baby
Did
on
you?
the road with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, the longest he was away from Diego was maybe 48 hours. And so he really just completely fell in love with our son and felt like he had a family for the first time. Um, but the emotional closeness and the sense of really having a partner present was completely absent. And um, I started, I didn't even recognize it. You know how we do that? We get into this mode and we look back
Mhm.
on a relationship and say,
Now you look back and you can see it, but
yeah,
at the time you didn't see it, right? Exactly. Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Now, are your twins with him as well?
yes, a lot happened before, between where I was
Right.
at in the story, and
Well,
then,
they're gonna have to read and find out all of this good stuff in here. But you do, I wanna, fast forward a little bit because 'cause we're only an hour show, but and I love your story, and it's just so awesome because I see a lot of people that I talk to, they've gone through so much stuff and it's the same kind of thing. A lot of us, myself included, I'll say, we go through all this stuff and it isn't till we're older and we look back and we finally find ourselves and we go within and we find that spark within us that we can look back like you are right now and realize you can see it. But at the time you're in it, so you can't really see it. But you progress so much. Like in 2018, I'm going to bring you forward, you became a certified Kundalini Yoga instructor. And I'm sure that changed you because I can say for myself, when meditation came with me, that's when I really connected with the divine. That's when things really changed. I would imagine that's when you went within. Is that right?
yes. And I have to go back a few years,
Okay. Go
because
back.
when I found Kundalini Yoga,
Okay.
I was in the depths of darkness and despair.
Okay.
And there had been treatment, jail, hospitalizations, suicidality, that was mainly the source or caused by a ton of outside shaming.
Mhm.
A few years into the marriage, in the survival mode, I interacted and had a personal relationship with a man that I had met, where I had sought help
Mm,
for my drinking.
mhm,
And my ex-husband and I were separated. We were trying to walk through a variety of things. I had had some trauma triggers, and some of his responses were very unhealthy. And so, during the time that I reached out for help, I met a man, and we had an intimate relationship for a short time. And I did not know that he had taken video and had intended on harming me and my family.
no, this is SC in the book.
Correct.
That's what I thought.
And
Okay.
so I don't know if prior to that it wouldn't have been such a long road if I had been able to go and just privately seek the help that I needed to deal with
Right.
my own shame.
Right.
But what that did is he blackmailed us. There was a very violent assault. He went to the press, and they turned it into this drug and sex scandal, where here was a whole human being struggling with mental health, struggling with trauma, managing with addiction, and completely created a story that was shaming. And so from that point, I did not know where to start.
Mm,
And I think that's where a lot of people are, is we don't know where to start. There's so much solution and readings,
mm,
and we do our best in every day. But what I found when I walked into a trauma and addiction treatment center for women who introduced me to Kundalini Yoga is that I had to first feel safe in my body,
mhm,
and to realize that I would none of that stuff was the truth, that the only truth that mattered, the only truth that does matter is that we are all infinite beings,
mhm.
whole, divine, and complete, and we come from this source, whatever you want to call it.
Right?
We are in these bodies with these thoughts, and they separate us. It separates us. That's why I call it a tax. It separates us from that only truth. And Kundalini Yoga with breath work
Yeah.
got me to a place where I can even hear that. Because to be told you're not a body is like, well, what are you talking about?
I
So the
love it.
breath work and sitting and just recognizing the physical pain triggers that were maybe causing a flashback, or the opposite, just started to slow things down,
Nice.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I went through a divorce a couple years ago, maybe God's 3 years ago now. And what really helped me, and I is all of you wonderful people who've come on the show, but truly the best thing has been to connect and to quiet the mind, like you're talking about,
Mhm.
and to connect with the divine and to just love yourself. Learn to love yourself. We're never taught to love ourselves. And I could see that as you were speaking when you were a young girl. And same thing I can remember, and now we're older and we're like, oh, if we just would have known to love
Mhm.
ourselves on the inside, and to connect with that energy, that loving energy that loves us no
Right.
matter what. You know what I
And
mean?
we are born from and
Yes.
in like this innocence, and it's always
Mhm.
there and can always be tapped into. Yet even that word, innocence, can be triggering. And so what I learned is the mind, again, it has been merely trying to survive. And it
Mhm.
has these, polarities and these ways of black and white that we think in. And we often live in this space here. Yet when we see that the whole package separates us from this infinite, um, the whole world opens no matter where anybody is at on their journey. One of the things in Kundalini Yoga that was like very eye opening to me was the Japji language. And so I've been certified in level 1 and then in 3 level
We'll
2.
talk about this. Tell people what this is because I don't know what this is. Tell me what this is,
So
Nadia.
Kundalini Yoga
Well, no,
is
the language that you're speaking of.
okay.
Okay.
So Japji, it's basically a set of poires or phrases that a man, Guru Nanak, wrote after a near-death experience. He did not, pretend to be Jesus. In fact, he was the opposite. He would go out on the streets and try and do these meditations with folks. But it is the most beautiful, uh, long poem that anybody could really write if they were trying to describe like existence and the universe. And the first words is what I connected with. And, it's Ekonkar Satanam Kartapurik Nirvo Nirver Akal Murit Ajuni Sebang Go Prasad Jap. And it sounds all weird, just like Kundalini
What
sounds
does it
like a
mean?
roller
What does it
coaster.
mean?
But it's it was so basic. It's like Ek is everything and nothing. My astrophysicist son like related to this,
I love it.
say that he was agnostic, but now he knows that what he's studying and the first sparks and whatever is out there, the
Yeah.
unknown,
Yeah.
formula, um, that his physics can't quite come up with. But anyway, so from everything and nothing is ek, ong, movement, something moved, something was created, kar is everything was created, and Satnam is your true self, your true
Mhm.
identity.
Okay.
And the most powerful part is that in that space, nervo nervere, without fear,
Right.
without judgment,
Mhm.
and just connecting with that only truth for me every day, I can find that middle ground with all the other work, 12-step work, trauma work, mindfulness work. It's like, okay, this is the one truth.
Mhm.
The rest is my mind surviving. And this will probably be a lot of fears and judgments based on roles, based on how we each find worthiness. And the beauty of it is that when I am aware of my own, it gets really, really powerful when I can see when others are in their fear and judgment.
Mhm.
And so it just becomes this ever evolving, beautiful source of blessings. And I always say again, we have a choice every day between love, which is a self compassion, and then the
Mhm.
compassionate responses to others, and fear and judgment.
It was
And it,
beautifully said, by the way, Nadia.
oh, thank
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's true because, I can sit here all day and say, hey, you guys got to go within. It's not on the outside, it's on the inside. But tell us again the words again. Just, so we can hear you say it again. The beginning. The beginning.
you. The
Yeah.
Japji?
Uh-huh. Say it
It's
again.
called the Mool Mantra if anybody wants to look it up.
Okay.
And yeah, and yes, it's called the Mool Mantra, or you can contact me on Instagram and I'll send it to you.
Yes.
It's Ek, Ong, Kar, Satanam, Kartapurik, Nirvo, Nirver, Akal, Murit, Ajuni, Sebang, Gu, Prasad, Jap. And then there's this part at the end. It's like Ad such, Jugad such, Habi such, Nanaka Hose be such. And he literally is saying to himself, like, hooray, this is the only truth. And
I figured it out.
so
I love
simple.
it.
It's so basic and simple. It's like,
Yeah.
it's so basic and simple.
Awesome. It's
So
so awesome. I'm so glad you came today. It's so wonderful to hear your story. How long did it take you to put this together?
I began writing in in late 2019, early 2020, and
Yeah.
then COVID hit.
Oh, wow. And so you
So
finished?
it was really nice. Yeah.
I
And
love
so
it.
it took me 10 months to a year. Now I had written, I love writing. I really, really love writing. I had
Cool.
written little pieces from my father's story, and then a lot of journaling, a lot of step work, as
Mhm.
well as stuff while I was in treatment and trauma therapy and things of that sort. So I started by going through a big, big pile of stuff. And then I had kind of outlined, had some different titles. And a friend said to me, just sit down and start. And so where I was able to begin was in telling my father's story. And
Mhm.
that kind of interlinked with messages in the future. And that's where there are letters to my sons in
I
the
know. I
middle
think it's
chapter.
it's cool. She writes letters at the beginning of each chapter, you guys. Home is Within is the book, you guys. What are you doing today and what's up next for you, Nadia?
So every day I wake up and I return to my home within, and then I go to my meeting, my wonderful fellowship, and then I do my emails, and then I have the blessing of doing this. The next couple of days, I have a couple other interviews,
Nice.
and then I get my kids at 3, and so between this and that, it will
You're
be a variety of things, a lot of writing and a lot of normal chores, normal
you're busy. You're busy.
chores and
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I
So
have
there are book events coming up. Um,
tell us about them.
Yes, so May 13th is Village Well Books, and that is in Culver City, and that is at 5 o'clock. And then Arvita Books in Tustin is the 20th. Bel Canto Books is June 15th. And then we'll have some online stuff also. I also do spiritual advocacy on Fridays, and that is really about banning shame. That's how we can ban shame within, how that's advocating for our spirit. And so we talk about different
Nice.
spiritual things and mindfulness things. This Friday, I will be having another discussion with Priya Jain, who's
Okay.
the founder of Seventh Chakra Yoga and wrote a book
Okay.
about Japji
How does the audience connect with you if they want to?
at Nadia Maria Davis on Instagram, and then www.nadia-davis.com can connect you with everything.
That's fabulous.
So,
Look at the person you've become. So awesome. So
yeah.
awesome. I love the book, Home is Within. You're going to help a lot of people. A memoir of recovery and redemption to let you know it can be done, you guys. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. You guys, we're going to get out of here. If you want an angel reading, go to my website, nancyyearout.com, and book your date and time. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. I hope you have a fabulous week, and God bless.